Hey everyone, I'm Steph and she's Kayla, and we are Margin Mavens, two women who write in their books and love sharing our thoughts with you guys. Today's episode is about Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief by Rick Riordan. This episode will contain spoilers, so if you'd rather read the book and then come back, you're more than welcome to. Now, onto the video. So, with the first book being The Lightning Thief, obviously we had already read this, so it's not like anything surprised me. Though, I will say, one thing I immediately noticed upon reading this book now as an adult, which granted the last time I reread it, I was still an adult because I read it in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
So I was graduating college, and I think I decided I had maybe a crisis or something, because a couple months after I graduated college, I'm rereading the Percy Jackson series. I don't know where my mind was at, but that gives us an insight. So Percy Jackson and the Olympians is really what Rick Riordan can hang his hat on at the end of the day, is this universe that he created. And it really came first with Percy Jackson's and the Olympians and the Lightning Thief.
Yes.
One thing that I noticed upon this reread is, I don't know if it's, I guess it reads like a very 2000s book. Because there's certain phrases and terms that we have now collectively decided are not good.
Yeah. It doesn't hold up.
It doesn't hold up in certain points. The way that like Medusa gets described is kind of icky. And I think it's important to note when you look back and you're like, wow, I didn't remember that. And so that was not the greatest. So I did do it. I brought back the tab system for Percy, but I did take a page out of Kayla's book and started grouping my tabs together, which makes it a little easier for me. I never thought of that. She's a genius. But I had 4 different tabs, and so I had a tab specifically for moments either Annabeth said something I liked or something about Annabeth, like characterization stuff. I did the same thing for Percy. I did foreshadowing, right? So I think foreshadowing by far had the most tabs.
Yeah.
And then I had, we see this later on in the series.
Yeah.
Because I think Rick does a really good job at kind of sprinkling things in. And having read the whole series, I can look back and go, oh, this is when he's making an allusion to something that's going to happen, like a book later or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I'm not sure. This could heavily be the bias of having already read, been there, done that kind of thing. I think it's cute that as a child, I did not see like Ares and Luke coming. Because I think now as an adult, especially I think looking for foreshadowing and being aware of what that can look like, I was like, okay, there's a giant war that could be happening. Yeah. What god kind of digs that idea? And I think, that definitely clicked for me pretty early on. And then there was just a bunch of things that I think, like, as a kid, you don't notice when it's super obvious what the author is putting down.
Because you're too busy trying to get to the next chapter and get to the end of it, and you're not paying attention to what's being written.
Yeah, because I think like there were moments, right, where specifically the one that comes to mind, because I had just finished reading it less than an hour ago, because I just finished reading this book. So it's pretty fresh in my noggin, is like the shoes and how Luke was constantly like pressing Percy, like, you're wearing the shoes, right? And I'm like, dude, when is this son of a sea god gonna want to be flying? Like, okay. And so then when those shoes then try to bring Grover into Tartarus, I feel like me as a person, my first thought would be like, why did the shoes bug out like that? We've been having no issues.
Right.
Who gave me these shoes? Like,
yeah.
And then for Percy to immediately after that be like, wait, my backpack has got really heavy. First thing I'm doing is checking my backpack. Why did it suddenly get heavy? You know, I'm in a realm of monsters. I might check that there's not a monster in my bag.
And then you remember that he's
12.
11, 12?
Yeah, like, and then it makes sense.
Kid. And then it's like, oh yeah, they're not gonna
check
adults,
nothing.
Yeah, but kids, they're not. Like respectfully. Like no hate to kids.
I think like there's decisions that are made, which I'm really hoping that the series doesn't becoming disenchanted with Percy Jackson, because it really is one of my favorites. Mm-hmm. But like Hades being said of being like reminiscent of Hitler was really not great.
There's a lot of problematic pieces in the book.
And just knowing that like we get Nico later, and like I love Nico, you know, and I'm like, can we really judge them for not wanting anything to do with the rest of you guys if you guys are just constantly like, these guys are terrible. Something that I think is also crazy, right, is so I watched, I mean, I feel like a lot of us did, but I watched the Percy Jackson movies, right? Mm-hmm. With what's his face?
Logan Lerman.
Yeah, love him. White boy of the month every month for me. But he, I think, does a really good job with Percy away from the source material and whatever. But what I didn't realize, because I've watched those movies pretty frequently, just because I like them as the movies and not necessarily as like, oh, these are Percy Jackson movies. Right. I completely forgot that we don't see Persephone in this book, because in the movie, she's the reason they're able to get out of the underworld. Mm-hmm. So now I'm curious what the thought process was behind why they brought Persephone in for the movie. Was it just to get that actress? Because then I'd understand. Because I think that's a pretty big name actress that plays like, Persephone.
You don't see a lot of the other gods in the book. You see Hades, you see
Hades, Zeus,
Ares,
and Poseidon.
Yeah, that's it. And Mr. D, Dionysus.
And so then, like, I completely forgot multiple things, right? Like, I forgot that we don't see Hermes, but we see Hermes in the show. But we see Hermes in the Percy Jackson show. He's played by Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right.
And they have the whole moment where that's the reason that they're at, like, the Lotus Casino, I think, is because they're, like, chasing after Hermes or something. Something's just close together. So then I was like, wow, we're going to get a really touching scene with Hermes and whatever. And we don't get that.
No.
We don't get Persephone. So I'm not saying it's a bad thing for the book. I've been so stuck, I guess, on these other forms of media when it came to Percy Jackson. I forgot that these gods don't exist yet.
Yeah.
I like Annabeth.
I love Annabeth and Grover.
Yeah, she's my favorite in the series. So I walked in knowing I was gonna love Annabeth. She is really obnoxious in book 1, though.
She's not that bad.
I think if I was 12, no, I mean, I'm very fruity. If I was 12, I would probably love this girl. But I think that a lot of people, because of, I mean, I guess it's the same thing with like astrology, right? Follow me for a second. If somebody tells you that they are a certain sign, right?
Oh,
you are going to
judge them,
but also allow like behavior to happen because you're going to be like, oh, that's just because you're such and such sign.
Yeah.
Right. I think that in the Percy Jackson universe, in the Rick Riordan universe, right, a lot of things are left where like, oh yeah, that's just because they're so-and-so's kid. They can act that way. Right. Mm-hmm. And I think like Annabeth, when she's like first introduced, she's not necessarily introduced as a lovely character. You have the, like, capture the flag scene where she and Luke very willingly are like, we're going to use Percy as bait.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, cool, use the kid as bait, but let the kid know that he's about to be used as bait. And I think that both of them, right, are like, we're going to follow Annabeth's lead because she's a child of Athena, right? But because of this mindset, Annabeth is kind of just allowed to say and do whatever she wants.
Correct.
Because they're like, her plans are always going to work. She's a child of Athena. And I'm like, yes. But there's still people and feelings involved. And Percy's already in like a whirlwind situation. And he's put in a very dangerous situation because they don't warn him. Like, hey, we're kind of using you as bait here. You're probably going to get jumped. And that is my biggest issue, I think.
Like, in the beginning of the book, even with Chiron and Grover, like, gaslighting Percy.
Gaslighting the hell out of this kid. Yeah.
About Mrs. Dodds. Yeah. Like, and just, when, like, not telling him.
Yeah.
And I just, like, I understand it because they explain it. Like, I get that. But at the same time, like, he's 12. He's a child.
Yeah.
He was attacked. And y'all just glossing over his trauma like that? Wild.
I think they do that a lot with Percy in his, especially I think from his point of view, is he's like, oh, these really terrible things happen, but everyone around me said it's fine. And then he kind of just has to like deal with it on his own or whatever.
Even from his mother.
Yeah. I like that we also see how Ares is immediately like Percy's biggest op.
Yeah.
And I like it just because Percy doesn't like the fact that he's a bully. And he's like, no, 100%, I would fight a god. And then he fights a god and he wins. You know,
I love
like, that's
that Percy
cool.
is willing to fight the gods.
Yeah.
It's his first reaction is just to throw hands.
One of my favorite scenes is when he ships Medusa's head to them.
Yeah.
And Grover is like, you can't do that. They're going to think you're impertinent. And he goes, I am impertinent. I like it. Percy is 100% tired of them already. And I feel bad because it's only book 1.
And he's still a kid.
I'm going
to keep repeating this. He's a child.
Yeah, he's a child. He's in for a whirlwind of beatings. And just, I forgot that Ares like places a straight up curse on him.
Yep.
And I don't remember how that plays out. So for those listening, just know that if in a subsequent moments of this video, I go, oh, figured out how it plays out.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Margin Mavens, where we talked about The Lightning Thief by Rick Riordan. Let us know what you think about the book or the series in the comments below. Stay tuned and stay gay, and if no one has told you this today, you are loved and you matter.